don't have to remember to start it.
Right?
That's what editing is for.
Silly computers.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm feeling a little more settled after being sick.
Excellent. Good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's no fun. We don't like being sick.
Nope.
Awesome.
So yes, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I love being able to hear people's stories and be able to share those with others because I feel like they're just so inspiring and encouraging. And
Thanks.
I don't have any paper. What is wrong with me? I always have paper because I always have thoughts and I write things down so that I remember things that I want to touch on or have people go back to or whatever.
Right? You get so many ideas as they go on a rant and you're like, can't get out.
I know.
17 questions.
Yes. One thing I do want to say is I loved your flow when I was on your podcast.
Awesome.
And I was like, wow, she has that whole thing written out at the end. And she has like general type questions to keep it going. And so at some point I was hoping we can maybe touch base and we can talk about that because I don't have anything like that.
What? How do you run a podcast?
Say that again.
How do you run a podcast?
It's the same way I'm very, it's very organic, I guess.
Yeah. And in all honesty, the only thing I have the skeleton laid out, like what I want to say at the beginning is always the same. And I'm at the point where I can say it without the notes or anything, because I don't want to stumble over that. And I want it the exact same every time. And then at the end of every show, and then in the middle, I'll have, I want to go through the natural succession of emotions for the listener. Mm-hmm. So who is this? Why am I here? Highlight the business. Is this pertinent to me? Do I give a shit? And then why do I want to listen to you? So that's when I ask them for their backstory so that they can position themselves as experts in it. And then we go into like, who's this for? And then that's when I pick their brain in whatever direction I want to take it. And then who their ideal client is, what a success story that they have of their client, and then what struggles might somebody be going through right now, just to kind of push the wound or put salt in the wound of, like, if you're broke right now and you're wondering why the hell you broke, or if there's more month at the end of the money, you need to connect with me. That's probably what you're going through, and this is how we help you. And then, great, how do they get a hold of you? Just to make sure that we never overlook that part, because sometimes I forget to ask them what's your links. And then I have my fun kind of my signature question that I want, and then just thank them or ask any last words, thank them, and then the exit. And my exit changes a lot depending on what I feel like. I've rewritten it like 6 times for the one show. And what I've found and what I've heard is that that's not really where you want the call to action. And that one, you want to have your kind of signature, might be inhale, exhale, you can do this. And then
like your little tagline,
whatever your little thing is. And then you want to have your advertisement for your business. This show has been brought to you by Dina Adams, where we help, people get to their first $100,000. If you're struggling to get to your first 100,000, go to dinaadams.com and sign up today. And then that way your ad is at the end of the show, and that can be a little more professionally done and rejigged, especially for people that haven't heard you before. Then that way it sounds just a little more professional, a little more something at the end.
Yeah.
But always promoting you.
I like that. I've never been good at promoting myself.
That's why you get somebody else to write it and somebody else record it, and then you take it and you add it onto your show.
Right. My son has the most amazing voice, and it's so deep. Nice. And I was like, hey, I have people who want to sponsor my podcast. I'm getting sponsors for that. I want to know if you would record their advertisements. I was like, so I need a recording that says this episode is sponsored by just that. And then every time I bring someone in, I was like, I'll have you record their advertisement, and then I can just plug them in where I want along the podcast. So it's like in the middle or towards the beginning or something like that. Cause I don't like my guests' ads at the end.
Right.
Because people may not always listen to the end.
Exactly.
My podcast, so I can go at the end.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And if I have, I don't really prefer to have multiple people sponsor one podcast. Mm-hmm. But depending on the interest of sponsorships and how many episodes I've got going on, I will have them I'll put the sponsorships on, of course, their podcast.
Right.
And then if there's I know I have it set up to where it's like your sponsorship happens over the course of 30 days, up to 4 podcasts. But as I'm recording, I'm thinking, I think I'd like them to sponsor this podcast because their audiences connect, their audiences overlap, or they're a next step for someone after this. And it makes sense. I don't want to just throw sponsorships on a podcast without them having some type of connection somewhere, unless it's really going to be on just my solo episode. Right. And then I can strategically place them where it fits. So I told my son, I need him recorded like this. He's like, cool. He's got a Yeti microphone. Nice. He's got an entire setup in his room. He's like, yeah, I'll do that for you,
My baby.
Boys. And so I said, okay. He goes, well, if people hear that and need someone to do that for their podcasts, he goes, I'd be happy to do that. He goes, I wouldn't mind a little side business of doing voiceovers or whatever.
Yep.
I was like, that's a good idea. He's like, I work nights. I need something to do during the day.
That's funny. Awesome. I love it.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I'm going to, if it's okay with, so the unedited version of this goes on my YouTube channel. And so what I'm also going to be doing after I get all the episodes up and scheduled and done and all of that by the end of April, I'm also going to be taking snippets of the podcast and doing shorts on YouTube, as well as it being on the podcast. So this whole unedited version, before, after, during, all the things, all get put into that thing on YouTube, because I love sharing the behind the scenes and letting people see what it's really like when you run a podcast. It's not all perfect and pristine and all the things. So
that is for sure.
Yeah. All right. Are you ready?
I am ready.
I'm going to dive in. So I'm going to do an introduction to the podcast. I'm going to do my introduction of you, and then I will have you introduce yourself. So that's kind of the flow, and then we'll get into your story.
Sounds good.
Cool. Hi, and welcome to today's episode. I am Dina Adams, your host, and I am here with the amazing Michele Nedelec. This woman, I have to say, is someone who I know when I talk with her, there's no BS. Like, it's so authentic. It's so real. And it's all about having your best interest at heart, even if it stings a little bit. And it's always coming from a place of truly caring about helping others. So, Michele, thank you so much for being here. I'm so honored to have you here today with us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Would you please share who you are, what you do, and who you serve in your business?
That was a whole lot. Yeah. So I'm Michele Nedelec. I'm the creative director and co-founder of my company, Awareness Strategies. I run the creative side of it. It is a Infusionsoft done-for-you tech services company. So we do marketing automation and bigger picture business automation. So we go into businesses and help them to strategize what their growth plans are, and then we implement on the marketing tech side to ensure that they reach their goals, and usually add $1 million to the bottom line. So I love doing that. I get to run the creative side, which means I get to do podcasts and fun stuff like this, which I love. And I get to strategize with people, which I also love. And it's super fun. I missed the other question. I got distracted on what I love and I went, yeah, I'm good.
No, that's awesome. When you think about, when we're talking about your ideal clients,
right?
Where are they at in business? Who are you serving?
Yep. So we have the capacity to be able to help solopreneurs, people that are just starting their businesses, all the way up to, $50 million businesses. Our sweet spot is in the $1 to $20 million. And the reason that is because they're at the point where they've tried things, they've thrown the spaghetti up against the wall, and they've figured out what sticks. And now they have this system in place, what I love to call Frankenware. It's, a little bit of this software, a little bit of that software. I hope it sticks together, try to breathe life into it. And unfortunately, I had a love-hate relationship with Frank. Every time somebody got an update, an appendage would fall off. He wasn't doing so well. So Brad took him over for me and helped me to build the business and to strategize it and streamline it. And that's what we want to do with businesses, is to help them not only to streamline the business, but also to strategize in the front end. Like, where do you see your next 5 years going? And oftentimes at that size of business, it's a little more difficult to see because there's more complex systems in place. There's more complex technology. HR becomes an issue. When do you hire? When do you not? And we want to be able to bring our expertise, especially Brad's, to the table, so that we can help them to actually attain their 5-year goals.
I think that's incredible. I have a lot of questions and a lot of thoughts around that.
Nice.
We'll get into that at some point.
I am happy to answer them.
Because I'm that person who loves to connect people. I never want to be a dead end for people. And when I work with my clients, they're just starting out to 6 figures, and I'm helping them get ready for scaling, right? We're streamlining their business for growth. So they're in that stage with me of piecing things together, doing only what they can do and figuring it out along the way. And I help them get ready for people like you, for businesses like yours that will help them. Okay, now we're at that $1 million mark and we're ready for something at a whole nother level. That's when I'm like, okay, let's hand you off to that next level. And so I always love when I'm able to connect with people in my network who are that next level. I can find a ton of people at my level that serve the same clients as I do. Yet what I struggled in the beginning with was finding people at that next level that I felt I could trust, and were those companies who really were there to help the companies. And so I just love that I found you, and we're in a network together, because I just think so many people need that. And I think part of it is we're afraid to grow because we don't know what to expect and we don't know who we're going to need. And it's already hard here. So how can we even imagine going forward? So I think you serve a huge need for people once they, in so many different aspects. I think that's amazing.
Nice. Well, thank you. And yes, it is a huge conundrum that people face. It's this ball of wax and thread and a huge amount of unknown. They perceive it to be a lot harder than it is. And we just want to make it a lot easier than it can be, because entrepreneurs, if they're anything like me, tend to make things a little more complicated than they have to be. And we just want to,
we're so good at that.
Keep it simple. Exactly.
We're so good at overthinking and overcomplicating everything. I think it's almost like a requirement. So what I'd love to do is really get into your story of overcoming.
How much time do we have?
Well, if you talk to Buzz Bazinski, it's 2 hours. So
right.
I think ours was an hour and a half. Orly was 2. So, we're scheduled for an hour, but we can however long we want to go. I think it's so important to be able to share where we were before we got into business, the struggles that we've had to overcome before and during, because so many people look at, oh my gosh, I'm not making this dollar amount, or I don't have this many followers, or I don't have a specific number. Therefore, I'm not achieving anything and I'm not successful. And I truly don't believe that. I think because we overcome so much on our journey to get to where we are, we have to give ourselves room to celebrate all the little wins along the way and honor ourselves in that. And a lot of that is overcoming the challenges. So I'm going to give you the floor if you want to go ahead and start wherever you want to start with your story and what that's been like for you.
Nice. Well, I'm going to start kind of at the end, because I think that there is a huge lesson in what you just said, is to celebrate the successes. And the way that I would help my clients celebrate the successes is, what did you get? What went right this week? So if they had a goal of making 5 calls and they made 1, it sounded like, I made 1 call this week. Yeah. If they didn't make any calls, you skip over it and you go to the next thing. It was like, oh, I read an article this week. Yeah, I read that thing. And to really acknowledge that there are successes no matter what. I got up this morning and I'm still on this call. That was my successes for the week. Whatever it is, make sure that you're doing that, and make sure you're doing it with somebody that understands that. And they're not like, yeah, whatever. Get that out of your head, because you are a success machine. When your brain knows that you create successes, it creates more successes for you. We all know about the medulla oblongata when we buy a Volvo and all of a sudden there's Volvos all over the place. It's understanding that when you acknowledge your successes, you'll see your successes all over the place, but you have to start with that. So I'm going to start there. And now I'm going to tell you, when you look at other people and you go, oh, it could always be worse, I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of one of those. So when I was 23, I decided that I was going to, actually, let's back up the bus a little bit more. So I went to high school. I graduated in a class of 6. My first year of university, my science class was 400. It was an interesting year that year. I had a lot of fun. Fell madly in love with a crazy person, and he was a lot of fun too. And by his 4th year of university, I had to get my act together and figure out what I wanted to be. So I decided I was going to be a dental assistant so that I could move into the middle of nowhere with him. 2 weeks before classes started, we broke up. I decided, hey, I'm going to do this anyways. I paid for it. What the heck? I learned really quickly that I'd rather be the dentist than the assistant. I fell asleep during my practicum working on people because I was so bored. I was like, I can't handle this, but I could handle being a dentist. So I masterminded this thing, my goal of I was going to become a dentist, and I was going to do it because I didn't want to spend 7 years in university. So I found out that I could go to Columbia and practice chairside assistant with a dentist in this program. I could come back and challenge the exam and become a dentist in Canada. I went, awesome. But this is Colombia in the 90s, and guerrilla warfare could have broke out at any second. So I needed to know that I could hire a plane and a pilot to be able to fly me out of the country if that happened. It only cost $100,000 at that time, and I had all of 0 of it. So I went, oh, and that's US, by the way, and I'm Canadian, so it's kind of like $1 billion. So I went, okay, so I need that. What do I do? I found out through my sister by talking about my goals and what was going on. She had a friend that was a dental assistant in Dubai, Saudi Arabia. And I found out that I could go through the American system, do that for 2 years, get paid $50,000 US a year, and have all my expenses paid for. Awesome. I just needed to do that for 2 years. Then I went back and then, okay, I applied for it. And they said, do you have any experience? I said, no. They said, you need 5 years in Canada or 2 years in the Northwest Territories. I went, awesome. They did a presentation from the Northwest Territories. I'll go call them and see if they need an assistant. They need an assistant. Awesome. So if you're good at math, you'll figure out this is still a 7-year plan. But I happen to be traveling and doing all sorts of fun things. So this is all good. So I started on my adventure January 5th. 1993 or whatever it was. And soon realized that I was more and more terrified as I got closer and closer to my goal, which nobody's ever experienced in their life, right? So I get there. The room they have me in is a porch.
Can you pause a second? I'm sorry.
Yep.
You're okay. You're okay. Right. Are you going to be here a while?
No. I'm going to pick up boxes.
Okay. Tape. Do you know where they are? Hold on one second.
Totally get it.
The boxes are, if you walk straight in the garage, straight back, there's stuff in the way. The boxes are on the left, all stacked up. And here is the tape gun with a new thing of tape on it. And there's tape downstairs in the little slider. It's okay, we can edit it out. All right, love you. Bye. My son is here to pick up moving boxes and tape.
Yay. Fun. That's awesome.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Please continue.
Hey. Where were we? Oh, January 2nd, 1993. I go up there and I realize that as I'm getting closer and closer to my goal, I'm becoming more and more terrified. It's getting colder and colder. Every time the plane goes up, it's getting darker and darker, and it's midday. And I'm like, what the? And yeah, this is long before Google. Like, oh yeah, right. Sun's not coming up in January in the Northwest Territories, let alone in the Arctic Circle. So I'll spare you all the details. We get there. They put me into, my bedroom was a makeshift room built onto the porch. So they had a bunch of 2x4s that had been attached to the outside of the house. It was a tropical -40, which in Celsius or Fahrenheit is still dang cold. I realized quickly that I was probably going to die there, because as I unpacked my stuff, went to the washroom, came back, half my stuff was frozen. And I'm like, I am not going to survive the night here. So I got completely paranoid, found the father of my son very quickly, moved in with him because he had a nice warm house, and realized with baby brain that my dreams and goals were abolished, because clearly I wasn't going to go to Saudi Arabia as a single mother. So that went down the tubes. Fortunately for me, the father of my son had a restaurant that he had run very successfully. And he said, wow, you were way too smart for this. You got to start your own business. So we decided not to start one, but 3 businesses. So we started a tanning salon, a bed and breakfast, and an electronics store. And I had a meeting with the bank, and they said, okay, what do you expect your profits or your revenue to be? Like, I don't have a clue. Well, you gotta, we need to know for your numbers. I'm like, well, okay, how am I supposed to figure it out? And he goes, well, basically, like, don't you know the numbers that they had before and what you got going on now? I'm like, nope, I wasn't part of those discussions. We came to the conclusion that I basically had to make this up. And I'm like, really? This is what business is just making stuff up? It's like, yeah, it is actually. And the better you get at making it up, the more accurate you are. Which is a weird lesson I didn't learn for a lot of years. Unfortunately, my relationship didn't work out with the father of my son at that time. So I moved back to Calgary, and I learned a ton. I mean, I learned more about marketing in that tanning salon than I have at any other business, because the phones were ringing off the hook and people were wanting to tan their hides, not their wives. And I went, messaging is really important. All sorts of fun stuff there. I could have run the first B&B website, because he was still looking at me going, hey, I hear there's this internet thing. Can you set me up a website? I think it'll be really good. Unfortunately, I didn't have the wherewithal to be able to figure that out at the time. But I did start to know that this online marketing thing was a thing, and let's start evolving with it. So those are my first 3 down. Moved back down to Calgary where I live. Started another business, went into finance, did super well at that, hired a team. I think I had about 30 people working for me at that time. But because of the compensation plans that we had, I was going broke. So I'm like, I'm out of here. Had I stayed for a month longer, I would have been financially set, because they changed the compensation plan a month after I left. Very secretly, nobody knew, nobody had a heads up. And I'm like, oh, great. And I wasn't in a position to leave it to my sister. I had to give it to somebody higher up. So that was kibosh. But okay, so now what am I going to do? I got a full-time job because I needed 9 to 5, because my son was going to school at that time. And I went, okay, I can't work evenings and weekends. I got to work during the day. So I got a job at a computer company, of which I knew nothing about computers at all. I quickly learned, I moved up the scale, and I went, hey, this is great. I should go into business for myself. So I started, went to school, got some training on programming, decided to start a website development company. And at that time, you had to program the little the little timers that go around in circles while you're waiting for things to load. So it was very programming intense. So that was a ton of fun. And I was good at it, but I wasn't great at it. And I didn't have the wherewithal to be able to do sales and development and all at the same time. So that business went down the tubes. So I decided to start another one.
Okay, so hold on. So I have to recap a little bit here because my head is spinning.
Right? And so is mine. Let me tell you.
Just trying to tell it all in a nutshell.
Yep.
What I take from this is, how do I say this? I'm lot crazy. Of people.
That's kind of what I took out of it too.
I think to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a little bit crazy because otherwise you're never going to survive in it at all.
Exactly.
Whatsoever. But I think there's a few words that come to mind: resilience, tenacity. Like there is something that as entrepreneurs, we have this drive. Well, if this one didn't work, it doesn't mean anything. I'll just do another one.
Right.
Well, that's okay. If that one doesn't work, I'll do another one. And when new entrepreneurs are coming into this space in the season that we're in, where a lot of them have been employees for a very long time, and they're like, hey, I can teach something. I can coach something. I can start a business. Their belief around failure is very different than most entrepreneurs.
Right. What if I fail? It's like, let's go on the assumption that you're going to and run from there.
Right. And I think it's so important to kind of, I lost count of how many businesses that you started.
We did a marketing thing a couple of weeks ago, and it turns out I had 28 career pivots before pivoting was cool. So like, and understanding, like my parents were like, what are you going to be when you grow up? You got to pick something. You got to master something. I'm like, I am the jack of all trades, master of none. And I love it. And when I found what my thing was, which is just around the corner here, all of that experience played into it. And I was a rock star at what I did because I could talk to so many different businesses about so many different things. Like it all came together, but I didn't know when.
There's so much learning. There's so many lessons that we disregard that when, people don't know I used to be a cosmetologist. I'm still licensed. I don't practice. People they don't know so many things about what I've done in business and the businesses that I've owned and ran and all the things that I've done. Yeah. And they see where I am now. And they think, oh, she's got it all figured out. It's so easy for her. And I'm like, I can't, my tears could probably fill up the Great Lakes. Like, I'm not even joking, right? The things that we experience and go through, the challenges that we face in our family, the overcoming of losing a business, that's not just losing a business. It's money. It's if you don't have the right support system in place, it's the ridicule, it's the shame that you feel, the guilt that you feel for putting time and effort into something that didn't continue and have this amazing longevity. Yet the thing I want to point out is right now, Michele may be laughing and it's a great conversation and she's sharing this amazing story. Yet when you're going through it and you're in the moment, believe me, we're not laughing.
Yeah, it was not fun going through any of it, I assure you. Well, and I say it wasn't fun. It was totally fun building them up and getting the excitement again. But it's that whole, you haven't lost as long as you can pick yourself up again. It's okay to fall. It absolutely is okay to fall. You just got to get back up again. And when you get back up again, you figure out kind of the next thing in the something. And the support structure was huge too, because like there's a whole ton of stories going parallel to this, and won't get into them all now, obviously, but being able to understand that your experiences aren't who you are. Your experiences are something that you're experiencing, period. Who you are is 100% separate from that. And it is really hard to believe that and live that while you're going through those stumbling blocks. I mean, it's hard to do that when you have a hangnail, let alone crash a business, right? Like, it's killing me. It's like, that's not killing you. You're fine. It's a hangnail. You'll live.
Right.
I'm only speaking from my example, my experiences, but it's, so when you say like, let's learn from the stumbling blocks that you had, there were so many, I can't even count them. I've gone through more than I remember. And it's being able to, again, realize that just because you did something in the past doesn't make it who you are. That's what got you to where you are now. And who you become is dependent on how you think from here forth. And it's got nothing to do with how you thought in the past or the results that you created in the past or any of that stuff. And it took me meeting Bob Proctor and going through his programs and to see my whole life in a whole new light that then allowed me to be able to take all of those experiences and to be able to work with entrepreneurs and executives to be able to help them to grow their businesses, because understanding the mind and how business works and the fundamentals of business, understanding the emotional attachments we have to all of them when they're working and when they're not working, that's when it became like solidified that, oh, this is where I belong. I belong on stage. I belong strategizing things, because I didn't give any credence whatsoever to my ability to talk breathlessly for hours on end in front of crowds, doing the thing, strategizing, because it's just what I did. So it's like a fish in water. I'm like, well, yeah, doesn't everybody do this? And I quickly realized, no, in fact, most people would rather die than do any of those things. I'm like, oh, so this is great.
So share a little bit about how you went from what you were doing before this business and how you transitioned into and discovered this was your sweet spot. Because I think a lot of us, like you said, you're a fish in water. It's natural. And we don't realize that other people don't think the way we think. And so we a lot of times feel like what we have to offer is not of value. Yeah. Or we're not at a certain level as a big company, a big agency, or all these things when we're getting started. So we don't really see a lot of times as entrepreneurs walking this journey that we have something of value to offer. So I'd love to hear how you transitioned, how you found your sweet spot.
Right. Well, and it was kind of funny because in about 2015, our clients were asking us to go online. So we had to produce courses and things like that. And we quickly discovered that the personal development side of things, as fantastic as it is, didn't translate online. We had to have a solution and result that we were giving people. So we had to become speak from stage or run a business or something. We just had to nail what the thing was. And at about that time, Brad, my business and partner in pleasure, as we like to say, he was done his contracts and he had been working on, he had the opposite life of me. He knew the moment he touched a computer that was his thing. And he had a blast doing it. So he was programming for a while, and then he was building computers, then he was building server rooms, then he was building software for multi-million-dollar companies. So the Halliburtons and the IBMs would go, hey, we need an operating system or a software system that runs our business. There's nothing out there. Can you build it? And it was like 3 years, 50 employees, so many servers, multi-million-dollar projects. And he was like, the politics is just getting to be too much. I said, I've noticed that people in the masterminds that I'm in, they hate tech. They cannot wrap their heads around it. They're not having fun with it. It's taken all the mojo out of the business. why don't we just pivot? You run the tech side of the company, I'll run the creative side of the company, and we can help these businesses get their tech done for them and allow them to stick to their mojo and what they do best. And so that's what we decided to do. And we've been having a blast with it.
I think that's amazing. I want to elaborate a little bit, but first I want to just touch on a couple of things. And I'd like to ask for you to share when it comes to overcoming, when it comes to the challenges that we face, whether it's in our personal life, our business life, our work, whatever that looks like, what are some things that you did for yourself that helped you continue to overcome the challenges that you were facing?
Yeah, absolutely. So early on, it was a matter of necessity. I need to make money. I need to get out of this job. I need to, as a lot of people do. As soon as I had kind of wrap my head around the laws of nature that govern success and how we think about things affects how we create the things, I came up with a couple of mantras. One of my favorites was Bob Marley's song, Three Little Birds. And when kind of the shit hit the fan, that was my go-to song. And I was like a 15-year-old teenager hitting rewind, play again. I was like, I just gotta get this song in my head. I gotta, like, it's all gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna work out. I don't know how. I can't see it, and I don't have to. That's not my role in this whole thing. My role in this whole thing is to figure out what I want and to lay it on the line, to articulate it to somebody. And a fantastic example of this that I love to use in the whole world of manifesting is my son came to me one time when he was little and he goes, "Mom, I want a nano." I'm like, "Good for you, honey." What the heck is that?
Oh my gosh, I haven't heard that word in so long.
Right. And it was like totally foreign to me. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, dude. And he goes, "Nano." And he's trying to explain it to me. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, go Google it, do something, like, give me something that I can work with. So he goes, Googles it, prints off a picture, and he goes, "This." And I went, "You want a black square piece of plastic?" Yes, that's what I want. I'm like, awesome. Okay, got it. I said, "Honey, love you, and I'm not buying you a nano." And he's all disjunct and fine. And like, I got to go. So I went off to my networking event, go do it. And that was at the time when there's the tables and they have the little draw and you get your thing. And I see the exact picture he wanted. And he goes, "Win a nano." And I'm like, okay. Threw my card in. Guess what happened? Of course I did. I won it. I took it home. I give him the nano. And he goes, "I thought you weren't going to buy me one." I said I wasn't going to buy you one. I won this one. And I know it's not mine because I don't have a clue what it is. It's yours. And he was over the moon excited. Like, that's how it works. You have to be able to articulate what you want, and you have to get emotionally involved in what you want. It doesn't mean the person you're talking to is going to give it to you. It means that you have put it out there so that people can identify what it is that you're looking for, so that when they have the conversation, they're like, "I was just having this conversation. You got to go and talk to Dina, and yeah, you guys hit it off. It'll be awesome." That's when we start to create the successes that we want to. And that's our job. Just figure out what we want, put it out there. The T's crossed and the I's get dotted, and eventually it works out to being able to play out in front of you.
I think some of that too is we have to get out of that belief of lack and that belief of poverty and that belief of I'm not deserving, and a lot of the beliefs around us not having value as a person, that we deserve to get what we desire.
Well, yeah. And part of it is
people, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Is people were told when they were little, you don't deserve that. Because in the mind of the adult, it was, you haven't worked hard. You haven't hit my requirements for that thing. I will give you that thing if you hit my requirements. The problem is, or the issue is that could be 20 different adults around you and they have 20 different requirements, none of which have anything to do with each other, let alone you. And it's understanding that it's not the deserving of said thing that is not being fulfilled. It's they have a requirement. Do you meet that requirement? And if not, go ask somebody else. Who cares? It's like in sales, right? They may not be the right one, but somebody will be the right one. And somebody is looking for you and waiting for you. So I used to, when I was teaching the concept. It was, what does a baby need to do, be, or have in order to deserve the things it asks for? Nothing. It has to exist. It has to be alive. Yeah. That's it. If it were deceased, we wouldn't be feeding it. We wouldn't be burping it. We wouldn't be doing all those things. Because it's alive, it deserves all those things. Whether or not we have the wherewithal to be able to deliver on that promise, on the other hand, is up to us. And the exact same thing happens throughout your entire life. Because you exist and because you're right here, right now, asking for that thing, you deserve that thing, period. That is no longer up for debate. Now, what's up for debate is who has your thing.
And do you believe it can come to you? Well, do you truly believe and embody the belief that it will happen? And so often we get stuck in the doubt and the negative self-talk that shifts our whole energy, and we attract what we put out. And
absolutely.
So we're putting out there that I don't believe, well, I'll say it, but I don't believe it in my core. I don't feel that I believe, like I don't feel that belief. It's not going to happen. And you're going to get what you spend the most time focusing on. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to understand that and comprehend that, especially if it's my listeners who are really strong in their Christian faith. And a lot of people don't believe in all of that stuff. However,
let me bring in too. It's got nothing to do with religion. It's got nothing to do with any of that. It has everything to do with the fact that you're a human being. So because you have this thing called medulla oblongata that I mentioned before, is that I go and get really excited. I bought a Volvo. Now I see Volvos everywhere. I see my successes, and now I see my successes everywhere. It's how your brain is wired, is to make you notice the things that are important to you. And one of the ways that I describe this to people is when you first walk into a networking event, if you are a huggy, touchy person and you love being around people, you are going to notice your friends in the room. You're going to notice people who look familiar, people who look like people who look familiar to you. Everything else will be ignored. If you're an interior designer, you will notice the color of the walls, the sconces, the color of the carpet. Other people will go, there was a floor in that room. They won't even notice. For instance, my dad is an electrician, and he always notices the hot air vents, the electrical outlets, the fire alarm systems, and weird things in the room, like a hole in the wall. And nobody else will notice it. And he's going, why is there a hole in the wall right there? And in every course I did, I would point these things out, and everybody's going, I totally didn't notice the hole in the wall. Like, I know, because it's not important to you. You focus on the things that are important to you, and you identify with them, because they keep you safe.
Which means we also have to get out of our comfort zone, because we're safe in our comfort zone, no matter how it is. Like it can be one of the worst places to be, in your comfort zone, but you've been there so long. It's what you know. And so you feel safe in the familiarity of it.
Yes.
You feel safe in the fact that you know how to respond. You know how to react. You know how to protect yourself. You know that. But as soon as you step out of that, you don't know what it's going to be like. Exactly. And so we can misunderstand that outside of our comfort zone is actually better than sitting in the comfort zone.
In fact,
you may learn in your comfort zone, but you don't grow in your comfort zone.
Exactly. Everything you want is outside of your comfort zone. Otherwise, you'd already have it. Yeah. So in being able to understand how do we get to that spot? How do you become comfortable being uncomfortable? And it starts with really small decisions. It can be as stupid as, how do you cook your eggs? If you're used to cooking your eggs sunny side up, try and have them scrambled. If you're used to having them scrambled, try having them sunny side up. Try having them poached. Try having them boiled. Try having a hard boiled egg. And you go, ew, I don't like eggs. Well, what if you did like them? How might they be cooked? Slathered in barbecue sauce. Okay, great. Try in barbecue sauce. Like, it doesn't matter what the thing is. Do something, every day, maybe, or at least every week, to get out of your comfort zone. If you always take the same road home to work, take a different route, go around the block. I used to do this exercise with my son when we were going for a random walk. I'm like, hey, do you want to go forward, right, or left? And he's sitting in the stroller and he's like, right. And I'm like, okay, let's go right. And he's like, this is awesome. I'm in control. This is awesome. You're learning how to be in control. Because I don't care which direction we go until it's time to get home. And then I'd go like right or left, or right or forward, to narrow us in on going the right way. But he still had an option in the choice. And that's what you want to do, is learn that you do have choices. You do have options. You don't have to take the same road home every day. And, switch it up, take a cab, get a limo instead of a cab, like little things that are like weird and out there that you're not familiar with, just to be able to go and try them. And like one super easy thing is people go to a restaurant and they always order the same thing that they always like. And I bet you nobody knows that if it's a nice enough restaurant, you can say, hey, you know what? I've never had salmon before. Can I just have a sample of that? And they will totally give you a sample of it because they want to sell you the salmon.
Yeah.
So you just go and you ask them for it and you're like, do I like it? Do I not like it? And it's like,
I do that. Can I taste that gravy on what this gravy will taste like? Because I don't really know if I want this or not.
Right.
I do that all the time because I am that person. When I go out to eat, food's a whole nother world for me. So it's a hot mess.
Be careful that you're getting stuck in your own thing. But I totally get that too, right? I used to go bodybuilding,
there's just things that I know this is what I'm going to eat here. Mm-hmm. I'm not someone who cares to often try new things when it comes to food.
Right.
And so I will, if we go sit down at a restaurant, every third time, no matter what restaurant we're at, I will ask, should I try something new? I'll talk through the menu. I'll kind of figure some things out. I'll ask questions of the server, try to figure that out and see if I feel like I'm able to come out of my comfort zone enough. Or is my social anxiety and anxiety around food going to be so bad that I won't be able to eat if I try something new today?
Yeah. So I'm not talking about somebody that has allergies, right? Somebody who has allergies and you got anaphylactic shock. I totally get it. Don't try the shrimp.
No.
Unless you know you're really close to a hospital.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you can't try the curly fries instead of the straight cut fries. Right. Keep it within your not your safety zone, but like realistic zone, right? It's like, I know I can do that and I'm going to be okay. I may not like it, but who cares? And it's because when we get too stuck in our own way of doing things, then we get too stuck in not being able to see the options. And the issue with entrepreneurialism is that our options lie in the turmoil. They lie in the problems. They lie in the chaos. And you have to be comfortable stepping into the chaos, the problems, and the trouble in order to be able to offer a solution for them. But because that's it, that's why we make so much money, because we're going into the fire, not away from it. That's why we make so many connections, is because we're finding out what somebody's pain is as opposed to running away from it and hating conflict. And I'm not saying you have to like conflict, although I have learned a lot from my little German Shepherd pit bull when it comes to coyotes. Anything that scares him, he's like, I am going towards that. And I'm like, I love you. Totally.
You're so my dog.
Oh yeah, that's fun. Have fun with that. Like really have fun with that. Because if you're hating and resisting the change, you're going to hate and resist change. And that's no good. You got to figure out a way to like the change, be enamored by the change, be entertained by the change, whatever that might look like.
Change is inevitable. It's going to happen constantly every day. And the more you get to a place of acceptance of that and learn how to find movement through it, the less the change will derail you.
Yes.
And you'll start to find ways that you thrive in those changes.
Yep.
You're like, eventually you look and go, hey, that changed and I didn't freak out and lose my ever-loving mind today. So yay for me. Celebration.
Right. And one really cool thing that you can do, especially if you're religious in any way, shape, or form, is to just your mantra becomes, help me become more comfortable with change. Help me embrace change. Help me, because you're saying your prayers every night. Hey, I want this. And this is completely different from what you got. So there's going to be a bridge there. So, walk with me, talk me through this. What might that look like? And just wait for the answers to come to you, because as you know, you're never alone. So why are you acting like you're alone? because you're not. So,
and then be careful what you ask for, because when you want to be better at change is going to come. When people ask for patience, you're going to be put in situations to practice patience. When you want to get better at accepting change, there's a lot of changes that are going to come your way. And it's not like you can say, okay, I want to get better at change. So can you help me like do these couple things so that we can try, it doesn't work that way. We don't get a list to pick from.
I mean, it can. It can.
Not like it's going to be delivered that way.
Right.
Right. And I think it's so important that we make sure that and understand there's going to be challenges. We're going to come up against things, whether it's our health, our spirituality, our faith, our relationships, our business challenges, connections, clients,
Taste
all
buds.
the things.
All of it. Taste buds. All of it.
Right? All of it. We're going to come up against challenges. And if we think in any moment, for whatever reason, we're going to stop having challenges and all of a sudden one day things are going to just be okay and it's always going to be that way, you are living in a reality that is a lie that you've created in your mind that is keeping you from being able to become and grow into the greatness that you were created to deliver and be in this world. So,
and the cool part is it doesn't matter if you're starting a business and you're going into it and you're starting to become an entrepreneur, you're getting over your first 100,000, you're getting over your first million, you're getting over your first 10 million. There's always something that is the coolest part. And, to quote my favorite movie, Shrek, we are onions. There are layers to the onion and it never stops. As far as we go out, same goes in. And so we can run the $10 million company. And as soon as we go, hey, I want to run 2 $10 million companies, now that's a different challenge and a different thing. And you have to get used to allowing yourself to change. And at those levels, it almost becomes harder to see where we're stopping ourselves because we have this delusion that we're really comfortable with change. And it's like, well, you've been running a $10 million company for 5 years now. That doesn't really reek change.
Right. There's not a lot of changes there when you get into a place and you're like, okay, I'm running this business. I hit the goal that I want. Some people, their goal might be just to replace an income making $50,000 to $100,000 a year, and that's totally fine. And if at any point you want to go after another goal, reach another target, shift something, add something new, there's going to be challenges along the way. So the sooner we accept that and learn to move through those and work through those challenges as opposed to fight against them, the smoother those transitions will be. And we will be less affected emotionally and physically and with our health and with all of those things, because not that it gets easier, we just understand better how to move through them and how to maybe sometimes not let it directly impact our health and our well-being.
Yeah. And so in some cases, it does become easier. So for example, I always challenge myself to new and different things. So one day I decided just randomly to get my forklift operator's license because I didn't have one. So in my 6-inch heels and my 1-inch and my 6-inch stilettos, my 1-inch nails, went out and put on my hard hat and got my certification in it. And it was just fun. It was just fun because there's no pressure. I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm not doing it because I need a job in it. And in fact, I would have been enamored if I got a job in it because it was so much fun. And things become so much easier when we take the pressure off and go, hey, it's not that I have to change. It's that I get to change. It's not that I have to do this. It's that I want to do this. And just allowing ourselves that motion makes life so much easier.
This was such a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing your journey and your challenges and your successes and your perspective on so many different ways of walking through entrepreneurship. I know people get a ton of value out of this.
Nice.
I just completely drew a blank.
Now that we're at the end of the show.
I guess it's the end of the show.
You want me to say what?
And we're good.
Peeps, you've been awesome. Connect with me. Oh, can I give your audience a gift?
Yes, I was getting there. I completely drew. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's the fact that I only got like 2.5 hours of sleep sporadically through the night last night. So I'm like hanging on by a thread right now. But my brain was like, I'm done. I don't know what else to say. No. So first of all, Michele, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of the things that you shared with us. And you do have something free to share with our audience. So anywhere you're listening to this podcast or seeing it on YouTube, in the description, you're in the show notes, you're going to be able to find the links and ways to connect with Michele and everything. But Michele, please share with us what our audience can, if they find that they align with you and they're like, oh, this is the woman I need to talk to, and she's the tech person, and this is who I've been looking for forever. And they're going to be like, yes, I want to get connected. What are the ways they can, one, get connected, and what are you sharing with them today?
Cool. Well, I won't put that much pressure on you. You don't have to connect with me if you don't want to, but I will give you a free gift. So I want to give you a website audit. And basically what it does is it'll go through your website and it'll give you back a 30 to 40 page report, depending on the size of your website. And it'll give you the green lights, yellow lights, and red lights according to the Google gods. So green lights, pat yourself in the back. You've done things well. Yay, you're getting traffic to those pages. Yellow lights are things where Google is slowing traffic down. Usually it has to do with the copy and the design. It has to do with the experience that somebody has. So is the page delivering on what it says it is? And can they, can Google scour your site the way it needs to? And then there's some red lights, and the red lights are Google is stopping you, period, end of story. It usually has to do with acronyms like SSLs and DMARCs and all that fun stuff. So at the end of that report, I'll give you a link to connect with me, have a strategy session with me. I will translate in English what the whole thing means and what the easiest steps are to be able to move forward on them are. And of course, happy to talk strategy and support with you and help you on your journey through entrepreneurialism, because that's fun. That's a $500 value plus my time. So
that's amazing. I'm so appreciative of your generosity. That is such a great gift. So everyone who has a website, whether you're doing SEO or doing everything for Google Analytics or not, you want to grab that. That is a no-brainer. So thank you again so much for being with us today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure and honor.
And that is where my podcast will end. And that's it. And cut.
And cut.
But see, now I have to figure out a really nice ending ad, as we talked about before, like to end my podcast. But see, I'm that person that I would much rather record it once and just throw it in at the end instead of having to say it every time. But
it's just a nice way of kind of finishing off so you don't have to go and cut. Well, and you have the inhale, exhale right behind you. So you could go, and regardless of where you're on in your journey, you know, remember this Dean Adams saying, just inhale and exhale. It'll all work out. And bam, you're done. And it's just a nice little into the thing. Doesn't have to be difficult. Doesn't have to be hard. Just has to be a little something.
I overthink everything. So that's me going into overdrive of like, oh, well, maybe I could say it this way.
I need to tell them that, and I need to get that link, and don't do that. Keep it simple. This
has been amazing. I really appreciate your time and everything that you've shared. And I was writing down like, okay, this would happened at 31 minutes, and she said this at 36 minutes, and this was at 48 minutes, and I need to put a star by that because I'll go back and be like, where was that? I know she said something really amazing right there. Like I have all these little minutes. Because I like to take a snippet and put it at the beginning of the podcast.
Yep.
And so I was like, I'm going to start writing down the minutes of all these little snippets so they can be shorts on YouTube and they can be headliners on Reels. And like my social media marketing strategist has me thinking of, remember, you're doing podcasts, you have content, you don't need to keep writing all the time. And I was like, oh, what?
Exactly.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we'll be in touch. I think it's just, I just can't believe that's what you're offering. I think that's so amazing and generous.
Nice. Awesome. Well, and I'd love to have it on your resources page too, so that people can go there and just grab that. So whatever you need from me in whatever
I
format,
sent you a link.
Nice.
So when you asked that question, I went in and put together a template.
Okay.
And so now you can just go in there, click the link, and put in all your information, including images and links and descriptions. And anytime you're ready to update it, you just click on that same link. It stays in the same spot in my Google Drive. And then just email me and say, hey, I updated this. And then I have a lead time of 7 business days to guarantee that those will be up and edited on the page.
Ours are evergreen, so you're fine.
So awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it, baby. Thank you.
All right. You're so welcome. All right. You take care. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye.